The first time I saw her helmet cracked open, revealing the shimmer of her face, I thought she was just another elite warrior. I had no idea I was about to touch the armor of a queen. None of us were prepared for the truth. The space station hung like a silver scar above the dying planet, its lights flickering against the void. I was crouched in the maintenance bay, knees aching, hands blackened with grease, staring at a panel of alien tech I didn't fully understand. She stood above me, silent, her presence alone demanding obedience, though she had not spoken a word. Her armor was unlike anything humans had ever seen, sleek, almost liquid metal in movement, engraved with symbols that pulsed faintly, alive in some way I couldn't explain. "You have to be careful," she said finally, her voice soft but firm, like the wind before a storm. I flinched. Most humans wouldn't dare speak back. I nodded, though my hands shook, my mind racing with a million questions I didn't dare ask. But that was only the beginning. I had been a station engineer for 3 years, and I prided myself on understanding the impossible. Yet this was beyond impossible. The armor was bleeding energy, tiny fissures glowing with alien fire that threatened to melt the station if I misaligned a single conduit. "Focus," she warned again, stepping closer. The air changed around her, charged, electric. It wasn't fear I felt, it was something deeper, something I couldn't name. "What's your name?" I asked, almost instinctively. She tilted her head, the light catching her eyes. I swear, in that moment, I saw galaxies reflected in them. "It doesn't matter," she said. And then, as if testing me, she added, "And yet, it might." Her words made no sense. But I ignored them. The panel sparkled under my touch, hissing, threatening to fry every neuron in my brain. And yet I couldn't stop. I had to fix it. Because if I failed, we would both die. What I saw next changed everything. The station trembled violently. Alarms shrieked. The alien armor reacted instantly, thrumming with life. She didn't panic. She merely pressed a hand to the hull and whispered something in a language I didn't understand. The metal obeyed. The crack closed like a wound healing itself. I blinked, dumbstruck. "How?" She didn't answer. But the way she looked at me, calm, evaluating, like she had just seen the fragility of an ant in her hand and decided it could live, sent a shiver down my spine. I was alone in this bay with a being I couldn't comprehend. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't just repairing armor. I was touching the life of someone far above me, someone I had no right to even glance at. But that was only the beginning. Days passed. Or maybe hours. Time was fluid here, warped by the station's failing engines. She began to appear more often, silently observing me as I repaired panels, realigned conduits, rewired circuits. Sometimes, she would kneel beside me, offering guidance that made no sense in words but worked in practice. I learned to read her body, the slightest gesture guiding my hands. It was during one of these sessions that I noticed the insignia hidden beneath her shoulder plate. A crown. Tiny, but unmistakable. My heart dropped. A queen. I had been kneeling before a queen without even realizing it. The realization hit me like a meteor strike. If anyone knew what I had done, if anyone understood what this meant, I would die before she even looked at me again. And yet, I couldn't stop. I couldn't unsee what I had seen. None of us were prepared for the truth. Halfway through the station's rotation around the dying planet, disaster struck. The main reactor overload erupted in a cascade of sparks and fire. I was thrown against the bulkhead, ribs cracking, vision blurring. She was there immediately, moving faster than humanly possible, her armor morphing to shield me. Energy arced around her hands as she stabilized the core long enough for me to crawl toward the control panel. I realized then that her life was tied to the armor. More than that, she was tied to this station. To this world. To me, somehow. "What are you?" I asked, gasping, gripping the panel. "I am what you see," she said, her voice calm, but every word carried the weight of centuries. But what you need to understand is not what I am. It's what I protect. I looked at her then, truly looked, and I understood fear for the first time, not my own, but the fear of the universe she carried silently on her shoulders. What I saw next changed everything. She removed her helmet fully, and for the first time, I saw her face. It was not just alien, it was transcendent. Eyes like molten sapphire, skin that shimmered faintly with the echo of distant stars, and a presence so commanding that even the station's failing light seemed to bend toward her. She was beauty and power and danger, all in one. And I had never felt so small, yet so connected. You knew? She asked, a subtle tilt of her head, almost a smile. Knew what? I managed, trying to mask the awe in my voice. That I am not just a warrior, she said. I am queen. And yet, you did not flee. You did not collapse. You helped. Her words pierced deeper than any weapon. I realized then that she had tested me from the moment I touched her armor. Every motion, every decision, had been observed. And she had judged me worthy. But that was only the beginning. The next days were a blur of repair, tension, and quiet observation. Every step I took, every bolt I tightened, every panel I rewired, carried a silent question: would I survive her judgment? And slowly, something shifted between us. Not friendship, not yet, but trust. A fragile, dangerous trust that neither of us dared to name. Then came the attack. An armada of ships, black as void, emerged from the shadow of the dying planet. Their weapons fired with the precision of predators. The station shook violently. The alarms blared. I wanted to hide, to crawl into some corner and pray, but she did not allow it. She grabbed my arm, pulling me to the central hub. Do you trust me? She asked. I nodded, though my hands trembled. Good, she said. Then follow exactly what I do. No hesitation. We moved as one. Her armor shifted seamlessly, energy flaring, shielding us from blasts that would have disintegrated anything else. She commanded the station like it was an extension of her body. And I did as she guided, rerouting power, sealing doors, activating defense protocols. What I saw next changed everything. During the chaos, I glimpsed her council, figures in armor like hers, bowed in respect, waiting for her orders. The queen of a civilization, leading her people not from a throne, but from the front lines of a crumbling station, her life intertwined with a human mechanic who had no right to be here. The realization was crushing. I was part of something impossible. Something monumental. By the time the battle ended, the enemy fleet in retreat, the station barely intact, I stood beside her, hands scorched, body bruised, lungs burning. She turned to me, eyes softening for the first time. You saved more than the station, she said. You saved lives. And more than that, you saved me. I wanted to speak, to ask 1,000 questions, to tell her what I felt. But the words caught in my throat. There were no words for this. Only a silence charged with understanding. And then, she did something I never expected. She knelt. Not as a queen to her subject, but as one being to another. She removed a small device from her armor, a crown, not symbolic, but functional, tied to the very essence of her power. And she placed it in my hands. You are now bound to me, she said softly. Not by allegiance. Not by duty. By choice. And that is rare, human. Very rare. I stared at the crown, the weight of it more than metal. It was a promise, a challenge, and a connection beyond any understanding I had ever known. None of us were prepared for the truth. The station spun slowly above the dying planet, scarred but alive. She stood beside me, the queen revealed, no longer just a warrior, no longer a mystery. And for the first time, I realized that I had not only repaired armor. I had touched history. I had altered destiny. The first time I saw her, I thought she was just another elite warrior. I had no idea I was kneeling before a queen. And yet, here I was, holding the fate of a civilization in my hands. I looked at her one last time before leaving the bay, and she simply smiled, eyes reflecting the stars and something more. Something human. And I knew, in that moment, that nothing would ever be the same again. The human engineer had not only repaired armor, he had awakened a queen. And the universe would never forget.